James Chrisbaum, you're listening to me, Gary, on Night Dreams Talk Radio.
What we are asking for from the government is full disclosure. We know what we're seeing, and there are too many of us. We're not going to.
As I gaze upon the annals of time, one thing that comes through: we are not alone in this universe. It's a thought that rings true. Ancient cave dwellers drew spacecraft on the walls. It's a recurring theme. I've seen the same thing while walking late at night, and I know it's not a dream.
From Malmstrom to Manhattan, Boston to LA, there are people asking questions and they will not go away. But what has been seen might not be what it seems. The government's shadow is dancing to see.
If you tell the truth, they will ridicule everything you say and do. It's all part of a deception. It's a puppet master's tool. And I've seen those craft shut down the silos from 10 miles away. And there ain't nothing that the Pentagon can do. They can't make them go away.
From Malmstrom to Manhattan, Boston to LA, there are people asking questions and they will not go away.
Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com, and thank you.
You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, from our compound to you worldwide, with your host, Gary Anderson.
Well, tonight's going to be a great night. We got tim-cullen coming in at the top of the hour, talking about his time he spent with the late Dr.Roger Leir, having his implant removed. Also, his encounter of him and his wife seeing a UFO. He gets in a car accident, goes to the doctor, and then the doctor discovers something in his arm, and then he seeks out, after the doctor couldn't give him information, the late Dr.Roger Leir, and goes in and has that implant removed. Makes you wonder how many people out there are having implants put in and not realizing it. I think there's a lot more people being implanted for some reason, now more than ever. I think people are seeing more UFOs for a reason, and I think there's abductions going on way more than there ever has been, and there's something going on. James, are you with me?
I sure am. I got a little theory on these abductions because I did a lot of research in this, and I've found that often it's not just one man or a family member. It goes on sometimes for generations. And I often think they just don't randomly pick somebody that's 30 or 40. I think they abduct them from childhood all the way up. And like you pointed out, they don't know it. Like, they don't even realize. They might only remember one or two over a 30-year period or whatever. God knows how many times they've actually been abducted, because I think it's been going on all along.
Well, especially if you take a young child, and we've had a couple guests on our show that claim that they were abducted at a young age, and that they remember floating in their room, and then, then they don't remember anything more than that, other maybe than seeing a gray or some type of creature there at the same time. But think about it. When they abduct young people, I mean, let's face it, you wake up in the morning and, you go tell hey, your mom, dad, say monsters came in the room and took me somewhere. You just had a bad dream. And
right.
in between whatever they do in the UFO to you to try to get you to forget it, and then your parents, backing it by saying, you just had a bad dream, son, or, hey, daughter, you just had a bad dream. You weren't abducted. There's no UFOs. It's scary because it starts out when they're young in a lot of these cases, and then it works their way up to they're in the retirement home. And again, there's people like Timothy Cullen. He was young and, recently married at that time. Well, he ran into a UFO. He was undoubtedly abducted and had an implant. And I'm just saying that it's on the rise for some reason. And it's really strange because like a lot of these reportings of UFOs are now in places where they haven't been reported much. Like over New York, for example, on the East Coast, the sightings for UFOs started in 2014 and 15 and just been increasing drastically.
Absolutely. And, you bring up some good points there, because here's another thing about these abductions. If they're abducting generations worth or the same person from childhood on, and these aliens, they don't live like this. Maybe they live to be 5,000 years old or 1,000 years old, and they can we have what they call junk DNA. Who's to say they haven't been experimenting with us for generations, and they can just sit back and keep, follow the trail of their experiments all through generations through DNA. And again, 70 years to us might be like 1 year to them. So they've got time to sit back and watch their experiments unfold through generations of families, if that makes sense.
Well, you just think about it. I mean, they're doing something maybe to manipulate our DNA, either to lengthen our life. Now, a lot of people who claim that they've been abducted, some people say, I had cancer, or I had this, or I had kidney disease, and all of a sudden I was cured after the abduction. But then there's been a lot of cases where people were abducted, and then, maybe they weren't returned, or they come back, like Calvin Parker said, that he had a feeling that his abduction, the people that abducted him in that alien craft, were not friendly towards human. He felt they were evil. And I hear that a lot from a lot of people that, claim that they were abducted. When they start remembering things, they remember a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And that certainly isn't something that they're trying to help mankind. Why would they make you go through pain and go through all this suffering? There's reasons behind all this.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you, you can look back to the events around Brazil in like 78, 79, late 70s. There were dozens and dozens of people that were hurt and attacked by, UFOs and aliens. I mean, they were hit by beams of light. There's pictures and there's scars and all kind of stuff documented. And the government got involved, and it kind of got hush-hush, but there was all kind of big flap about people getting hurt.
Well, there's been cases where they found people, weird cases where they would find a person that didn't have any mental issues. They were either in college or they were medical doctors, professional people, that they were found in weird places with their shoes off and their socks off, like floating in water for some reason. No signs of any struggle or any being shot, stabbed, beaten or anything. They disappeared, and then later they're found just floating in the water, but their shoes and socks are off, which is kind of unusual right there.
It is, and it kind of makes me think, because a lot of these reports that say the aliens don't have a thumb, they've got like 4 appendages, and some of them got like suction cups on the end of their fingers. Now, if that's the case, maybe they couldn't put the shoes on them or tie their I don't know. It kind of makes me think that maybe they're not as coordinated with Earth and the gravity to do things that we can do, maybe. I don't know. It's just weird, though.
Or maybe they just don't bother. They just dump the body off. Why would they take and dump a body off in a lake or a canal or wherever but it's a lot of those type of reportings during the time, each year of, men and women. Again, their shoes are off, their socks are off, they're fully clothed, no signs of any struggle, no signs that they were ever talking about suicide. And if people are going to commit suicide, why would they just take their shoes and socks off and then jump in the water? That don't make any logical sense either.
No, those are just excuses that the powers that be like to use where they don't really have an answer or don't want to try to give any.
I don't know. It just is a lot of those reports, and then reports of cattle mutilations and all that. You know, like we said at the beginning of the show, that is now starting to hit again, where, you know, cattle are being mutilated. It seems to go in cycles, you know, like crop circles, and then that goes in cycles. The mutilation things go into cycles, and we're in a cycle right now.
You're right, because the one we talked about from Oregon, they had about the same kind of scenario in the same area 40 years ago, like a 40-year cycle. And again, maybe it's these aliens, you know, they could sit back and run their experiments. Their experiment for our science that takes maybe a year to them might be 50 years. You know, it doesn't make their time is different. So they can just sit back and let this stuff unfold. We're just like, you know, ants. Like an ant's lifetime to us is maybe a year. We live 70, and we're just ants to them.
It's interesting. You know, Bernie Sanders, too bad. You know, I really don't know if he's going to continue on for running for president as an independent or whatever he's running under. But he had a major heart attack. He was just released from the hospital today. But he, you know, swore up and down if he became president, he would release all the information of aliens. Now, I've heard that before. Clinton said the same thing. You know, the president, you know, before him said the same thing. A lot of presidents said, hey, I'm going to release it. But as soon as they're in the office, they don't release anything.
That's right. Even Jimmy Carter, I think, said something. And even your buddy there, Ronald Reagan. He said something because he had an incident. Remember, wasn't it him and, was it Jackie Gleason or something, or him and his wife? They had an incident going to a party?
Yeah, well, what happened is, I guess they were good friends. And that Jackie Gleason took him to, you know, not Jackie Gleason, but the president, Nixon took Jackie Gleason into where alien bodies were and showed him. Now, any president had a lot of power before he was going to be impeached. Was Nixon. He had major clout. I mean, you know, the Pentagon respected him. If he said something, he did it. And, you know, and Jackie Gleason, to the day he died, said he saw alien bodies. Yeah,
and that really makes you scratch your head and think. And it makes me think it starts back with the theory and the rumor where Eisenhower started the deals with the aliens for trade with technology with, well, whatever.
And then a lady in Texas was in really shock when she was looking at the sky and filming the sky at night with her boyfriend, and it was around 9:15 p.m. She saw slow-moving lights that appear to be UFOs.
Wow, there's been a lot of reports on them. I got to tell you, there's a lot of reports within the last month, especially on the East Coast, of triangle-shaped objects with lights, funny action with lights on the bottom of the crafts.
Well, you know, what's really, Calvin Parker is in the process of writing his second book about his abduction. Did you know that?
I heard something about it, but I haven't talked to him or anything. But if that's the case, I'm going to have to looking forward to it, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the information about this was just released like about 11 hours ago, that he's in the process of writing a second book about his experience of being abducted, said his publisher. So, I mean, that is going to be interesting. He's going to get probably deeper into what his first book was about being abducted. You know, having him on the show, it was kind of hard to get things out of him. But once he was on the show the second time, he was more easy to get information from. But I tell you, the whole thing of his abduction experience, I think, you know, it would really mess somebody up for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
I think there was probably more than this, the alien, you know, trying to put her fingers down his throat and come out his nose. This, the whole experience of laying there, not knowing what they're going to do. You know, could go in your mind. You don't even know if you're going to survive what they're doing to you. You know, could you imagine being on some type of a table and they're exploring your body and taking